Have you ever been in a conversation where someone just seems to have an answer for everything? You share a story, and they've had a similar, but somehow more impressive, experience. You mention a problem you're facing, and they immediately jump in with a solution, even if you weren't asking for one. If this sounds familiar, you've probably encountered a know-it-all. It can be frustrating, right? But what if I told you there is a lot more going on beneath the surface than just arrogance? Today, we're diving deep into the psychology of a know-it-all. We'll explore what drives this behavior, how to deal with it, and maybe even see a little bit of ourselves in the process. Let's start by getting one thing straight. Nobody actually knows it all. The world is too vast. Knowledge is too deep. So when someone acts like they do, it's usually a signal that something else is at play. One of the primary drivers behind this behavior is deep-seated insecurity. Think of it like a suit of armor. The constant need to be right, to have the last word, to appear as the most knowledgeable person in the room. It's often a defense mechanism. These individuals may have a fragile sense of self-worth that is heavily tied to their intelligence and expertise. Admitting they don't know something, or that someone else knows more, can feel like a direct threat to their identity. It's as if their entire value as a person rests on being the smartest one there. This insecurity can stem from a variety of places. Maybe they grew up in an environment where they were only praised for their intellectual achievements. Their parents might have celebrated their good grades, but ignored their emotional needs, teaching them that their worth is conditional on being smart. Or perhaps they were bullied or felt inadequate in other areas of their life, so they overcompensated by developing a superior intellectual persona. It becomes their primary way of feeling powerful and in control. By projecting an image of omniscience, they're trying to convince not just you, but also themselves of their own value. Another key psychological factor is something called cognitive dissonance. This is the mental discomfort we experience when we hold two or more conflicting beliefs, or when our actions contradict our beliefs. For a know-it-all, the core belief might be, I am an intelligent and competent person. Now, imagine they encounter a situation where they are proven wrong. This creates a conflict. Instead of accepting the new information and adjusting their belief, which can be a painful process, it is often easier to simply reject the conflicting information. They'll argue, deflect, or change the subject to resolve that internal dissonance and protect their self-image. It's not necessarily a conscious choice to be difficult. It's a subconscious drive to maintain psychological comfort. Then there's the Dunning-Kruger Effect, a fascinating cognitive bias that you've probably heard of. In simple terms, it's when people with low ability at a task overestimate their own ability. It's not that they're trying to be arrogant. They genuinely lack the self-awareness to recognize their own incompetence. Their limited knowledge prevents them from seeing the full scope of the subject, so they feel like they've mastered it. We see this all the time. Someone reads a couple of articles online about a complex topic, like economics or medicine, and suddenly they're debating experts with absolute certainty. They don't know what they don't know. Conversely, true experts are often more humble because they are keenly aware of the vastness of their field and how much is still unknown. Narcissistic traits can also play a significant role. While not every know-it-all is a narcissist, the behavior is a common feature of narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissists have an inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. In a conversation, they're not looking for a mutual exchange of ideas. They're looking for an audience. They see conversations as a competition, a stage where they can perform and demonstrate their superiority. They will interrupt, talk over others, and dismiss different viewpoints because the goal isn't to connect or learn. It's to win. Other people's feelings or perspectives are secondary to their need to maintain a grandiose self-image. So, now that we understand some of the psychology behind this behavior, how do we deal with it? It's tempting to get into a debate and try to prove them wrong, but this often backfires. Remember, their need to be right is tied to their ego. Challenging them directly can feel like a personal attack, causing them to double down and become even more defensive. You'll likely end up in a frustrating, pointless argument that goes nowhere. A more effective strategy is to practice what's called strategic disengagement. This doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you can choose not to engage in the power struggle. You can use neutral, validating phrases like, "That's an interesting perspective. I'll have to think about that," or "I appreciate you sharing your thoughts." This acknowledges their contribution without escalating the conflict. It defangs the situation. You are essentially refusing to play the game by their rules. After a while, they may find that their usual tactics don't work on you and move on. Another powerful technique is to use I statements. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," which is accusatory, you can frame it from your own perspective. For example, "I understood it differently," or "from my experience, I found that ... This makes it about your personal viewpoint rather than a direct challenge to their facts. It's less confrontational and opens the door for a more balanced discussion, if they're capable of having one. You're not attacking them. You're simply adding your own piece to the puzzle. Sometimes you can even redirect their expertise in a positive way. If you know they have genuine knowledge in a particular area, ask them specific, detailed questions. This can be a win-win. It satisfies their need to feel smart and helpful, and you might actually learn something. For example, if they're a self-proclaimed car expert, instead of arguing with their general statements, you could ask, "That's interesting. Could you explain how the transmission system on that model actually works?" This forces them to move beyond broad claims and engage with specifics. If they truly know their stuff, great. If they don't, they'll often back down rather than expose their lack of knowledge. It's also crucial to set boundaries, especially if this person is someone you have to interact with regularly, like a coworker or family member. You have the right to a respectful conversation. If they constantly interrupt or dismiss you, it's okay to say something. You could try, "Hold on, I'd like to finish my thought," or "I hear your point, but I'd like to share a different perspective." Be firm but polite. If the behavior persists and it's taking a toll on your mental well-being, you may need to limit your interactions with them. Your peace of mind is important. Finally, and this might be the hardest part, try to cultivate a little empathy. It's easy to label someone as arrogant and dismiss them, but as we've discussed, this behavior often comes from a place of pain or insecurity. This doesn't excuse their behavior or mean you have to put up with it, but understanding the why can help you take it less personally. You can see them not as an adversary, but as someone who is struggling with their own internal battles. This shift in perspective can make your interactions with them feel less draining and more manageable. And let's be honest, we can all have our know-it-all moments. Have you ever been so excited about a topic that you dominated a conversation? Or corrected someone a little too eagerly? It happens. The key is self-awareness. Recognizing these tendencies in ourselves allows us to be more mindful in our interactions. We can practice active listening, ask more questions, and be more open to being wrong. True intelligence isn't about knowing everything. It's about recognizing the limits of our knowledge and having the curiosity to keep learning. So, the next time you encounter a know-it-all, take a deep breath. Remember the insecurity, the cognitive dissonance, and the fragile ego that might be hiding behind that facade of confidence. Choose your battles, set your boundaries, and lead with empathy. You might not change them, but you can change how you react, and that's where your power lies. You can protect your energy and maintain your own sense of peace, which is far more valuable than winning any argument. Thanks for joining me today to explore the fascinating world of human psychology. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments below. Have you had to deal with a know-it-all? What strategies worked for you? I'd love to hear your stories. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into how our minds work. See you next time.